Hello, my loves. So, today we are going to be speaking about a topic that I care so passionately about, and that is alchemizing the fear of being cringe online. Okay, so you want to post the content, you want to post your art, your consciousness, your ideas, but you are terrified of embarrassing yourself. Maybe there's that high school group that still follows you on Instagram, and you're like, oh, I cannot be involved. What if they see me stepping into a new me? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, the first thing I want to talk to you about is this is a five-part system. And I actually thought of one more that I'm going to add to the end. It just came to me as things do. But essentially, what does alchemize mean? It means we are transmuting, we are transforming. Typically, in alchemy, it's base metals or metals that were seen as worthless, quote unquote, into gold, into something transformational, into something more powerful, more radical, and more divine. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this emotion that we typically feel in isolation, like it's something that you carry on your own, and we're going to say, what is the wisdom it has to share for us? What can we learn from it? And how can we use it as a way to connect with ourselves and with the collective rather than as something that is stopping us from sharing our voices? So let's get into number one. Okay. Number one, we are always going to want to validate. Like that is always what I'm going to say is we're just going to affirm and validate this energy within us because, we live in a very judgmental culture. We have a lot of social conditioning, a lot of hierarchies and supremacy and colonial consciousness as well, that is all affecting who gets to feel safe in being seen and who gets to feel okay in their expression. So we have a lot of ableism. We have a lot of all of the isms, colorism, homophobia, fat phobia, anti-fatness. And so with all of this comes all of these cultural understandings of who is allowed to take up space and in what way. And so I want to affirm that both between hierarchies and supremacy culture and also in a culture rooted in shame. Think of things like bullying. Think of things like hate comments and online culture. We've seen so many people be torn down. Sometimes we've even participated. So with that in our bodies, it's very difficult for us to then put ourselves in a position to do the very thing that we've seen rather, can be very dangerous, in the sense of people getting canceled, people being hated on, dragged, ridiculed, people minding their business and becoming a meme. Like all of this affects us and is layered on top of our individual wounds we carry of childhood bullying, of maybe being the friend that people made fun of or made jokes about, or some insecurity that we still carry about how we may be perceived based on maybe how our childhood or parents or people around us in those developmental years treated us and regarded us. And so I just want to affirm that instead of saying, oh, why do I feel this way? Or why can't I just get over this? Just treating it with the utmost compassion, that it makes so much sense that you would feel that way, my love, that in this culture that you've been given, that's not very nurturing towards creatives and towards creativity and creative expression. Creative expression is always a risk. You're always trying to do something or say something that hasn't quite been done or said in that way. And with that, you are being very vulnerable. And with that risk and with that vulnerability, there comes the fear of backlash, the fear of being shamed, the fear of being judged, the fear of not being received in the way you are seeking to be received, or even often the fear of success. So we don't want to be seen in this role because in our society, one of the worst things you could be is an embarrassment, right? Oh, the shame of that, the pain of that, the fact that even the way that we talk about each other and gossip about each other, there is this undercurrent of like, don't be shameful or you will be called out for it. You will be ridiculed. You will be dragged. You will face the torment of the collective. And if you're watching this, I'd bet you're a sensitive soul. And as sensitive souls, we care a lot what people think about us. And so we do have that people pleasing tendency within us. And also we do have that fear of being extricated from the collective. Why? Because our bodies know that our aliveness and our livelihood depends and interdepends on each other. So we have this wisdom and codes from all of these centuries of us living as a species, hundreds of thousands of years. So that's where we want to start, just soothing the inner child, soothing that voice within us that's feeling like, what if this all goes wrong? And just say that your feelings of shame and embarrassment are completely valid in the context of the culture and the society and the social conditioning and the shaming nature of how we relate to one another, where we're often humiliating each other or dragging each other. And this may be on or offline, and gossiping about each other. So there's this wound that we carry, whether it's a sibling wound, sister wound, brother wound, of like, what if they laugh at me? And what if I'm not okay and safe in this expression? expression, like this is who I know myself to be, or who a part of me, because we're very multidimensional and multifaceted. But what if I express myself in this way, I face that backlash? And what if I can't survive that backlash? So it makes so much sense. You're not alone. I did a whole masterclass on this, and we were all talking about fear and all the fears that come up as we create. And I think one of the most painful fears, and again, one of the fears we carry in isolation, is this fear of this backlash, this cancellation, this rejection, this ridicule, this judgment. It's a deep wound. Why? Because we are deeply social beings. And so, what we need to understand as sensitive souls is it's our sensitivity that allows us to create. It allows us to tap into the deep emotional state of being that we feel. What allows us to feel love on a deep level, what allows us to feel grief on a deep level, what allows us to tap into the magic of everyday existence and the magic of a moment. And yet, that same sensitivity can also be what blocks us from sharing our voices. And so much I want to affirm that your voice needs to be heard. Your gifts, people are waiting to receive you, that what you are seeking in this expression that you feel called to is seeking you. Think of your favorite movie and how it changed your perspective or your way of being, or you just enjoyed it, or you felt alive or seen. All of the creators of that film went through their own sort of doubts and pains, yet here you are, having sought out this film and felt seen by it. So just in that way, you didn't know you were seeking a film exactly like that, perhaps. But now that it exists, you feel like, wow, my life would be completely different if they hadn't committed to this project. So I think it's the same way of thinking, like, even though I'm envisioning the worst, sometimes the best also happens. Sometimes there are people seeking the exact messages that I have to share. And even though sometimes it feels like what I have to give for that is put myself up to be ridiculed or to be hated on, sometimes it's like, you know what? And on the other side of that, what is the opposite of fear? It is love. It is trust. It is community. It is the fact that we can hold this in community, and we're going to be speaking about that shortly. So now that we've validated our fears around being cringe, the next step to take is to neutralize. So we need to neutralize our self rejection. Like, we're rejecting ourselves. We've decided that, why is this so embarrassing? Because we've decided that this part of ourselves that's being expressed is unacceptable. Maybe we're embodying ourselves in a certain way. Maybe our physical presence is something we can't accept because of the beauty standards and the beauty hierarchy and toxic beauty culture that exists, which is a huge part of the shame point we were just speaking about. So we've decided, not independently, but based on the culture and the messaging we've received, and also the experiences we've had, as I mentioned, to reject this part of ourselves that we think is so embarrassing. It's unacceptable. What does it mean to be cringe? It's like, ew, it's a rejection. It's a denial. It's like saying that part of me is unacceptable. If I let that part of me be seen, it will never be received well. It will never be accepted. It will only be ridiculed. Why? I'm even ridiculing myself. So we reject ourselves almost to protect ourselves from the rejection of others. But what we don't realize is, if we're fearing rejection, then rejecting ourselves is a sure way to ensure our own rejection. Because if we never post the video, we never meet the community that may come from that video. And I feel strongly about this because two of my closest friends, both July cancers like me, we met through TikTok, or we reconnected through TikTok. So through sliding into DMs or losing track of each other for years and then coming back to each other. And I just know so much more community is on its way through that platform. So what I want to say is that it's very important to understand that we are deeply rejecting, we are repelling away from something within us. Maybe you don't find yourself funny and you look at these videos and you're like, oh, cringe, this is so embarrassing. Maybe you hate your appearance. This is so embarrassing. You feel, I'm too ugly to be doing this. I'm too fat to be doing this. I'm too dark skinned to be doing this, whatever it is. I sound weird. I hate my voice, all of these things. We've decided to relate to that part of ourselves in a repelling way. And again, this is socially and culturally informed. I'm not saying you independently decided that, but essentially you're saying this is unacceptable. And sometimes what we try and do in response to that repulsion is attraction, to go to the complete opposite side and say, oh no, this is actually amazing. This is actually wonderful. I love this. But what we feel is the falseness of that sentiment. We don't feel in love with what we're seeing. We don't feel in love with what we're creating. So then what happens is we struggle because we're not in authenticity. We don't love it. We're hating it. So what can offer us, if we think of alchemy, meeting a moment with what it demands so that it can be transformed into something greater, into something higher, is neutrality. And by neutrality, I think in the culture, there's a lot of language around detaching and the importance of detachment. And I don't really vibe with that unless we are detaching selectively in order to attach. What do I mean by this? Sometimes while I'm editing my videos for my podcast, I'm so repulsed like by what I'm seeing. Either I don't like how I'm saying something, or I don't like seeing my own image in that way. It just feels really unnatural to be viewing yourself in that way. And what I say to myself is, if I continue to stay this clinging and this attached to this is wrong, this is bad, this is embarrassing, I'll never finish this and I'll never post this episode. And it will never exist in someone else's consciousness as the love that I was intending, because all my podcast episodes are very loving and nurturing. So I want that energy to seep into someone else's being. But if I'm there rejecting, repelling, denying, then it will never be finished. I'll be like, oh, this is terrible, I'm not going to post this. So what do I do? Instead of saying, oh no, this is amazing, I say, this just is. If I say to you right now, leaves, trees, grass, clouds, it's very neutral. What is it? Is it good? Is it bad? I mean, it just is. I think some of us love trees, but if I just say that word to you, you don't get this instant pang of either rejection or attraction. I mean, I actually love trees, so that's not a great example. But clouds, for example, or just leaves, branches, it's very neutral. And what we need to understand is we are part of this vast universe, and everything in the universe belongs. That doesn't mean it's wonderful or loving, but it belongs. So your emotions are part of the universe, just as the air is, just as the sand is, just as the waves are, so your emotions are. But what we learn is there are certain emotions we should cling to and there's others we should reject. So what we need to sometimes do is, okay, the alchemist is saying, what does this moment need to be transformed into something higher? And we can say neutrality. So sometimes while I'm editing, instead of saying this is so bad, this is so good, I just say, you know what, this just is. My job is to finish this and get it into the heart of someone else. They're actually going to have a completely different relationship with this work. They're not going to find what I find cringe. They might find what I find cringe actually their favorite part of the episode, because that is the nature of human connection. We reject within ourselves what may be very attractive to someone else. And at the same time, because it's very difficult to jump into attraction from rejection, we can say, I'm going to selectively detach from this work so that it can allow me to attach, connect with the audience that I'm seeking to reach. So if you go on a TikTok and you see how many videos there are in someone's TikTok, there's hundreds or thousands of videos. Imagine if every single video that person was deeply attached to and said, this isn't good enough, this could have been this or that they would never be able to progress. They wouldn't be able to just hit send. The mindset of selective detachment is, this is just a video. This is just a video. It doesn't have to be invested with all this emotion. And as sensitive souls, again, it's using our emotions, being artists of our emotions, rather than letting our emotions use us to work through and to work for the systems that want to silence us. Because when we don't post our videos and our content and our ideas, who benefits? The status quo, because most of our ideas somehow, somewhere challenge what we've been taught to believe is true. So if I am too scared of this episode and I don't make it, then I never share my message around the fear of being cringe. And who benefits? Well, all the people who want to keep us in shame and want to keep us silenced. Not to say this is going to change the whole world, but it could change the world for one person. It could change the mindset or the heart set of one person. So I'm selectively saying it doesn't have to be incredible. It doesn't have to be terrible. It just is, just like the sand, just like the trees. And we are alienated, especially if you are in a Western culture, but actually that imagination has had a huge imprint on just how we understand ourselves, especially through the paradigm of psychology and how the tyranny of that paradigm essentially, because of that paradigm viewing us as alienated from nature. If you go to the Oxford Dictionary of Nature, it says the natural world as opposed to the human, rather than as one with the human. So because of that, we think that the things we're going through, we're moving through, are the most unnatural forces, and we don't understand how to relate to them in a more balanced way, to say everything belongs, and this thing that I'm rejecting is actually not in and of itself repulsive or awful or terrible. I'm rejecting it because of the culture that I've grown up in. I'm struggling to accept it or feel attracted to it. So I'm going to say, okay, this is just a video. Okay, I'm selectively detaching. What is the mindset that someone who's going to finish this video and send it out would need to have? And for me, sometimes it's like, it's just Monday, the 21st of January. It doesn't have to be this deep, emotionally like charged and, oh my goodness, if my goal is to devote myself to a podcast for years, like not until February, literally in 10 years, I want to be interviewing people in terms of my current consciousness. Obviously, we don't know how we evolve. Then if I really am able to do this for 10 years, what's the mindset I need to have now? It's just a fucking episode. It's just episode 38. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be, oh my goodness, but on minute 12, you said this. And why didn't you say that? And you implied this. And now you left this person out. And you made it seem like you thought this, but actually you think, you know what? That's what I had to give. And what Rick Rubin says in his book, The Creative Act, is it's essentially viewing your work as a diary entry, not something that defines you as an artist or as a person or as a creator, but really someone who just posted what they felt that day. That could be in the form of a drawing, it could be in the form of an episode, it could be in the form of a piece of writing. It's just how you felt that day. If you wrote that same piece 12 hours later, 2 hours, even while I'm editing, I'm like, oh, I've already changed my mind about this. That's just who we are. We are just like the oceans, just like the wind. We are always shifting. We are always evolving. And yet we say, this one thing I made on this one moment of time, maybe you made it over months, defines me. And if it's not good enough, I'm not good enough. And I'm just not going to post it. Rather than, this is just something I made on December 21st to December, 29th. And I'm just going to let it be, because my voice also deserves to exist in the chorus of voices of creatives that exist today. Why not me? Why not you? Why not us? So that is on neutrality and developing the sense of neutralizing your approach to your own work, and zoom. And we're going to talk about zooming out so that we can see what is the long-term purpose of this project and goal of this project, and what is the mindset that I would need to adopt in order to fulfill that long-term desire. Let us now go to the third way that we can alchemize our fear of being cringe, and that is connection. Now, let's talk about this, okay? Because we know that one of the deep wounds of the global consciousness at this time is loneliness and isolation, is feeling that even in a crowd of people, you feel alone. Why? Because you cannot go to the deepest realms of your soul and of your being, to the conversations you really want to be having, to the form of being listened to that you want to be experiencing. So you are both either physically isolated in that you may be in a town where you're on your own or a city where you're on your own, or you are emotionally and existentially isolated. Many of us are being alienated from each other and feeling a deep sense of loneliness, okay? And importantly, a deep sense that our deepest emotions, no one in our life can really hold and sit with and experience with us, when in reality, we are meant to be living all the time together, dancing together, moving together, breathing together, walking together. We were literally, our bodies are made for that kind of coexistence, that kind of co-presence. The idea that you are never creating alone, you are never being cringe on your own. You're making a little song with someone, or you're decorating a pot with someone, or you are singing with your family, or you are tending to the land or cutting something with your family. This is very important, and collectivism still exists in many cultures across the world today. I'm not acting like it's a relic of the past. So I come from a collectivist culture. I'm South African, and I love that. And also because we also are displaced from one another through things like jobs and asynchronous experiences of time, where we don't have as much free time together as we were meant to as hunter-gatherers, we still feel that alienation. So how does this relate to the fear of being cringe? The problem is you carry this pain on your own. You sit in your room by yourself and you look at yourself, or you look at your content or your art, and you think, this is not good enough. This is so embarrassing. So what are we going to do in response to that? Because we can't solve the loneliness crisis in a video. What we can do is use the power of our imagination, okay? So we're going to use the power of our imagination. Part of this process of alienation and separating us from each other has been the mechanism of dividing us even in thought. So we imagine in our consciousness that everyone is going to be against us. We've been weaponized against each other, and our imagination and our ability to imagine has been weaponized against each other, so that we are always projecting the worst case, our fears, rejection, denial, criticism, judgment onto the other, rather than projecting the possibility of love, connection, feeling seen, intimacy. And I know I've experienced this so much in my podcast, where I put an episode out and I'm like, oh my word, I should have said this and I didn't say that, and I didn't like how I said this. And then I read the comments and they're like, you've cleansed me today. You have no idea how powerful your voice is. I've been journaling about this episode. Thank you so much. You are so generous. And I'm like, wow, wow. And I'm so lucky that I have a community that is that responsive to me. But what I mean by this is, if we're always using our imagination against one another, then kind of again, the status quo achieves its ends of keeping us thinking that we are each other's worst fears, right? That we are always going to grow each other's pain. And I know this is because many of us, our deepest traumas and wounds are from the collective, are from other people, are from people who should have taken care of us when they didn't, are from family members, friends, people in our community. So I don't want to discount that at all. What I do want to say is we need to reclaim our imaginative power to imagine differently, to connect through imagination. So how do we do this in practice? So if I'm feeling so cringe and I'm like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. This video looks so terrible. Who am I to think that I can do this? I just sit with that feeling and I say, okay, I've now validated. I say, this is valid. You've grown up in a culture that shamed you, and I really wish that I could wave my magic wand and put you in a deeply supportive environment that would make you feel safe in this expression. So what are we going to do now? We're going to use our imagination and say, this part of me that I'm rejecting is in so many people. This thing that I do that I find unacceptable, millions, if not billions of people do that exact same thing. What do you see in TikTok comment sections? Oh my word, I thought I was the only one who did that. I thought I was the only one who felt that way. What is this a symptom of? Our alienation. We don't understand that on these deep levels, we are so similar to so many people. So this thing about you that you think is unimaginatively acceptable is actually a deep part of many people. That thing that you think, oh no, like, but now I thought I had a niche, but now I'm interested in so many things. Connect to the collective consciousness. If you're interested in so many things, there are so many other people who are interested in the things you're interested in. Like we think we're this, oh, but I don't have a niche, so then my audience will be confused. No, your audience is a different manifestation of the same unity consciousness. If you have diverse interests that span beauty culture and colonialism and also creativity and also, how to be a good friend and romantic longing and love and deep connection and also other things, reading. I love reading. I made it about me. But essentially, your audience is going to vibe with that because that's the nature of us. We are not that different. And we are living in a world that wants to alienate us from that fact. So when you feel this feeling of, I'm so embarrassing, this is so ridiculous, laugh and think, how many people feel this way? How many people do this thing that I do and think, oh, that's so embarrassing? And what if me posting this video is going to help normalize and spread out this way of thinking, seeing, feeling, being, looking like we need to feel represented in the collective consciousness? By you sharing yourself, you don't even realize that you are helping someone else feel seen in you just choosing to express the part of you that you've decided that has to be rejected. Because the people viewing your videos and they feel the same way. They were like, whoa, I've never seen someone like me expressed in this way. I feel seen. I love that comment. Of all the comments that I receive on my podcast, my favorite, I feel so seen by you. I deeply resonate with you. So we all are craving resonance. So the more of us are using our voices and putting them into the world, the more resonance will be found. So if we think of the frequencies of being and everyone is vibrating on a different frequency, the more you vibrate at your specific frequency, the more people of that frequency are going to feel seen and heard. And our frequencies intersect with our interests, our everything. It's not just energy, it's also what we feel drawn to and called to and magnetized towards. So when you speak out and you say, listen, I really care about this, and you bring that energy of caring, there is nothing more magnetic than that. Listening to someone who feels deeply passionate about what they are saying, that passion could be rage, that passion could be heartbreak, that passion could be a deep sort of joy, bliss, love. There's nothing more satisfying. And I think we see this in so many viral videos. They're very emotive. People are drawn to people who are expressing the emotions that they don't feel they have the space to express publicly in their lives. So through you, they get to feel seen in that emotional expression. They get to feel seen in your vulnerability. It's almost like it's their own. Why? Because unity, we are all interdependent. We're all the same source, coming from the same source. So when you share yourself bravely and honestly, you are allowing people who are vibrating the same way, who are viewing things the same way, making the same similar conclusions, or maybe who just are craving insight and they don't even know yours is the insight they were craving. You are allowing them to feel seen. So when you connect to the collective, instead of saying, I'm so alone in this feeling of embarrassment, say, how many people feel embarrassed by this? And then you think, oh, I wonder, there's a girl in Ghana, there's a girl in Colombia, there's a person in China, there's someone and you just start to imagine all the manifestations of this embarrassment in the world. And what you would hope to happen in response to that on a global scale is that we do something so that it's no longer so embarrassing. And us, even though it feels like a very small act, posting a video, posting an essay, how do you change the world? You change culture. How do you change culture? By people, now all of us having this democratized means, not all of us, of course, in the world, but now if you're watching this, the democratized means of telling our own stories, sharing our own ideas, sharing our own perspectives. We can feel the ripple effect that is having. We are reaching deeper levels of consciousness. We are taking on different values. We saw it in COVID. We saw it now with Palestine and the Free Palestine movement. We are not the same people we were. Why is that? Because the people who are now able to share their stories directly and their perspectives on events and on life and on spirituality and on philosophy and on history are not the same as they were. The colonizer wanted it to always be them. Who was the historian? The victor. Who is the victor? The colonizer. So it all links, right? We change the world by sharing and expressing our truth and trusting that if millions of us are doing that, it is going to lead to a shift. And I think, especially as a digital creator, you're kind of downplayed in the culture. Oh, you're just an influencer. Oh, you just make videos. Oh, and yet, where are people spending their attention? Where are people gaining new ideas? What are people saying in conversation? Oh, I saw a TikTok that. Oh, I learned in a TikTok that. Oh, I saw in an essay that. Digital creativity has the property or the ability to really be viral. So I'm not saying it's the only way you change the world, but it's certainly one of the pillars, because you change the world through changing consciousness, actually, is the actual thing. You change the world through changing consciousness. And when you change consciousness, the culture changes. The things people are saying, how they're saying it, the energy they're saying it with completely shifts, because now they are a different kind of being. They see the world differently. They don't think they should be spending their time, suffering. They no longer think that. They now think, oh, I'm actually a manifestation of love. So then what will they do? They don't see each other as aliens or enemies. They say, oh no, Palestinians are my siblings. Congolese people are my siblings. So then that shift happens, and people are now suddenly advocating from that position of really believing that we are each other's siblings. So this is how, because when we have a different consciousness, we literally demand a different world, because we want a world that is in line with the consciousness that we have. Okay, so connect through the collective consciousness, which is you, which is part of you. You are not some lone wolf just experiencing things on your own. Everything you're experiencing has been experienced, is being experienced, will be experienced. So speak into that void. If you feel that there's something missing, someone else feels that way, something missing in what's being expressed, an idea, a piece of art, speak to it. You're not alone. I promise you. It's a testament to our alienation, how much we feel that we are alone in the embarrassment we feel, and also in the ideas we feel called to express and how we feel called to express them. I promise you, you're not alone. And if you tap into that imaginative power of, could I just imagine or feel it's possible that someone actually really wants me to post this video? Someone out there is scrolling on their bed and they want to feel seen by this exact thing I'm making. What you seek is seeking you. So who might be seeking your voice? And why are you preventing them from achieving their desire of being expressed through you, or having something important to them expressed through you? Okay? This takes us to the next element in this system, which is service, which is so deeply connected to where we just landed with connection. And when we are in a service mindset, magic can happen. So let's talk about service. So with service, we really want to shift from ego protection. How will I be perceived? How does this make me look? What if I don't sound smart enough? To who will this serve? If this could help one person, how would it help them? Because when you are in ego protection, you are actually constricting your own power as a divine being on this earth, your power to heal. We all have the power to heal. What I mean by that is not that one voice is going to heal you, but think of all the ripple effects of people hearing healing ideas and receiving them and normalizing them in their consciousness, or the effect of one person hearing an idea that deeply resonates with them, taking that idea, infusing that into their how they treat people, right? We are each other's healers. And as I said, we also are, as humans, the source of each other's wounds, and as a culture and a system that hasn't taught us how to actually be fully embodying healing energy and healing people. So we don't go to education systems that teach us, how do you love? How do you listen? How do you heal? How do you not inflict pain? How do you understand your ancestral trauma so that you don't continue the cycle, but you actually break it? So that's a whole education piece in how society is designed and what value structure it's designed upon. But when we understand that on a deep level, service and collectivism, as in, I'm willing to sacrifice the self, not in a martyrdom way. Just, I'm willing to be inconvenienced. I'm willing to be of service in order to serve the collective. That is not a Western ideology. That is not an individualistic ideology. It's a deeply collectivist ideology. Because people think, oh, I want community, I want collectivism. But then you ask, okay, there are going to be things like from this whole therapy speak culture where you will have to sacrifice the self. I don't mean in a like die way, but I mean in a sense that there will be things that the collective wants that you may not want. What will you do then? You know what I mean? And of course, this is a nuanced perspective, but what I mean is that it is very important that we tap into our natural born gifts of serving each other. And serving each other could be making an incredibly funny film that makes people laugh and brings levity or makes a commentary on society. Serving each other could be just sharing that idea that was so important to us that we're convinced if it was important to me, again, connect to the collective consciousness, which is your birthright, which you are a part of and which is a part of you. If it was important to me, it's going to be important to someone else. And I believe that. Why? Because there's 8 billion of us. It's not possible that if this is not important to me, it won't be important to someone. So when you shift from how will I be perceived? How will I be seen? What if this isn't good enough for my ego and for my need to see myself as perfect? Because what we have to understand is perfection is a paradigm that's been imposed on us by hierarchy culture, by supremacy culture, by a system that has ranked us and ordered us and given awards and given hierarchy and status and privilege to people who show that they are meeting these invented standards by colonial consciousness, by capitalism, and all these things. And so when we're in this ego protection mindset and we are focusing on self-preservation, how can my ego be perceived? And when we understand that through this perfection paradigm, we don't know how to make sense of ourselves or view ourselves as acceptable if we can't track ourselves onto the notion of perfection. So when we see ourselves trying, when we see ourselves doing something that we don't yet fully know how to do, or that we haven't fully embodied the kind of expression we want to have, like maybe we're interviewing someone and we think in our heads it's going to be incredible, but then we do it and it's actually a little bit fumbly and there's awkward pauses, and that's just life. Right? And what is an awkward pause if not just you breaking the convention of how you've been taught conversation is supposed to go, which breaking convention in this world, that's a good thing. But essentially, because we don't know how to make sense of our worthiness as beings when we are not somehow tracking ourselves onto perfection, we then completely reject and dispose of ourselves in the face of feeling imperfect or posting something that seems imperfect. But what we need to understand is whenever we are in a perfectionist mindset, we are not in a service based mindset. Because why? The person who is desiring to be served, to be seen, to be felt, they don't seek perfection. Have you ever said, oh, my friend, they helped me so much. They listened to me in the absolute perfect way. They didn't pause. They just, everything was perfect. It's like, no, even if they fumbled with their language, what is meant, what is felt by us when we felt listened to is that sense of you were here. You experienced me. You held space for me. You listened to me. You played back what I said to you. You were there. Your intention was aligned. It doesn't matter if you maybe said something that, and then you backtracked. It's not about that. The one who needs service, the one, and we all need service, the one who needs healing, and we all need healing, they are not seeking perfection. They are seeking to feel seen. They are seeking to feel healed. They are seeking to feel a sense of resonance. You know what I mean? And resonance is so much beyond perfection. If you speak and you create from an aligned intention of trying to spread whatever message you are trying to spread, but like genuinely you align yourself to that frequency. So for me, it's love, babe. I'm all love. I'm trying to manifest through, I'm trying to share my love. Why? Because I've faced so much of this. And it's from that energetic space within my being and body that I can then speak. Right? This has been such a pain for me. But as again, we are alchemists. So I can alchemize that pain that I felt of being cringe, that I felt of facing backlash or fearing backlash that hasn't yet come, or just feeling the sense of what if everyone rejects me? What if people already are rejecting me? What if people are calling me embarrassing or viewing me as like, oh, I would never do that? Because I've felt that pain, I've sat with it. And because I know so many of us, we're not so different. It's the TikTok comment section. I understand in my being that everything at the root, underneath the layer of the ego, is just a being who wants to feel safe, nurtured, loved, seen, heard, all the things. You know what I mean? And so with that, I say, okay, my goal, my intention for this podcast episode is not the perfect episode. Perfection never served anyone of its own accord, right? If I align my intention so deeply to the spirit of trying to support someone on their journey with something that I faced, I cannot go wrong. There is no right or wrong. There just is, again, the leaves, the waves. I just am. I'm just manifesting purely as the thing that I know to be true, as the conviction I know to be true. So there's no room for a perfectionist mindset when we really dissolve the ego. And sometimes this is something that we can conceptualize, oh, ego death or destroying the ego or whatever, or unlearning the egoic state. But how do we actually put it into practice? And what I would say is ask yourself, would this poem, would this essay, would this video, could this poem, could this episode help one person? And if it could help one person, and I am one person, who am I not to post it? And if you continue to have that mindset with everything you post, could this help one person? Cool, yes, go. Neutralize. Cool, yes, go. Connect. It helped me, so it could help someone else. This is an interesting story to me, so it could be interesting to someone else, right? You will be on the path that was made for you, in the sense that you will be sharing yourself authentically, because you will be tapping into a version of self that doesn't exist in this world, which is a self beyond ego. It's very difficult in such an egoic culture to truly experience ego death when you're posting to your own social media platform, when the platform is measuring you not on how deeply you spoke to someone's heart chakra and consciousness, but rather how many views you got, how many likes you got, how many followers you have. So we're living in an egoic paradigm, a paradigm that wants us to be attached to our ego so that it can be used for its own ends, for the ends of the big tech companies, for the ends of capitalism, for the ends of all of these systems and structures. So I think true ego death, when we think of the fact that we exist in a culture, it's very difficult, especially if we aim to remain in community with people. If we want to separate off and go meditate on our own, maybe. But if we want to be in our social beings, it's very hard to not deal with, oh, but what if those people who are following me from high school judge me for this? What if the people from university, when I was one version of myself, now I'm trying to be another, what if they judge me for this? What if they reject me? What if they're laughing at me? What if they have a group chat where they're just laughing at me? What if they see my post and they think, who do you think you are? Trying to be something that you never were, trying to be a coach, trying to be a business owner, trying to be a musician. You can't even sing. What the fuck? You know what I mean? So in a world that's constructed like that, true ego death is very difficult. But what we can do is alchemize and say, what this moment requires me to do is say, just as I am wounded and right now I'm struggling, there is someone out there struggling. So if I want to live in this very natural relationship, which is our birthright as nature, is what does nature do? It receives and it gives. Even the lines between that is blurred. The flower, it receives sunshine, right? It gets it from the sun, and it receives water and nutrients. It receives nutrients from the soil, and it gives of itself as beauty. It gives of itself as pollen for the bees and for more life to grow so that other flowers may exist. And then the bee comes, and the bee's not even intending to pollinate. It's trying to get the nectar. That is its way. And then in generosity, it goes to the other flower and it pollinates that flower because it's fulfilling its role of giving and taking. So just as that, my darling, my love, my angel, you in your being, you have this energy of giving and taking. So just as if you've received a video on your timeline, or a poem that changed you, or a movie that changed you, as a receiver, so one must give. Okay? So if that creative, you can use your imagination that you're developing now to say, whoa, what if that TikTok that changed my life, what if they actually felt really embarrassed by it? Or what if they felt like, oh, this is not going to do well, but they still decided to post it? How generous of them. Okay, so in alignment with that generosity that I've received, if you're watching this, you've received someone's generosity. There's a book that an author really struggled to finish or struggled to bring into the world. There is the movie that really was a struggle. I don't mean to glorify struggle, but essentially because of the paradigm we live in, it's just difficult to be a creative and be supported in that, right? And so people have had to really sacrifice, and also people have just been generous. We don't even have to only look at it from struggle and sacrifice. People have been generous. They've devoted hours and hours to editing the video or editing the movie, right? 30 hours maybe they've spent on that YouTube video that changed your life for 10 minutes. So in the spirit of giving and taking, nature is always giving and it's taking. It's receiving and it's giving. So as nature, as someone who's receiving people's ideas and art, knowing we live in a shameful culture and they probably felt some element of shame, can I give? Can I serve? If I've been served, can I serve? If there have been healing things for me, can I heal? And it's a beautiful process. I think it's really important as a creative to know who are the people who fuel you, because then it's a natural process. They fuel you, you fuel others, and we keep going, babe. Like that's nature. That is the way of the world, is that we are in this divine dance of receiving sunlight, metabolizing it, putting it into our being, and then hopefully if we are receiving the sun's energy, what do? We feel more bright and sunny. Not automatically, of course, there's huge mental health challenges that the sunlight cannot fix, but we then radiate that sunlight energy to others. When we felt deeply loved, we can radiate that love. And sometimes we can imagine a kind of love that could flow through us, and we could actually radiate that love even if we've never received it. So we have this beautiful process of, we had a mentor, so then we mentor someone. We had someone who spoke love into us, so then we speak love into someone. Or we have this creator who always is saying, oh, you can do it. So then we're suddenly like, whoa, I can do it. Or now we're talking to a friend and saying, you can do it. I saw this TikTok, she said so. Or I saw this YouTube, they said so, right? Or I read this book, you need to read this book, it will support you. So we know even The Alchemist is such a perfect example, where Paulo Coelho faced a lot of backlash from his family for wanting to be a writer. So we are receiving this wisdom. It's now being alchemized, and we are then able to say, this embarrassment I feel, this cringiness I feel, it is in all of us as artists in a world that needs to demean and to ridicule artists so that it can continue to exist in the fucked up way that it does. Because if the artists who were the ones whose consciousness really was centered in the world, we would always be thinking about what could be, not what is. We would always be thinking about how can more love and beauty and the deep kind of spiritual beauty flourish here. We would always be thinking about, and I know there's a lot of toxicity that can happen within artists, but I mean the spiritual kind of art is one that speaks to the divine, is one that tries to mirror the universe's beauty back into us, is one that speaks to the deeper realms, the slowness of life, the softness of life, the sweetness of life, but also represents things like deep pain, grief, trauma through the art, but lets it become something even more powerful through that expression, right? Okay, so we're going to focus on how can we serve rather than how can we protect how I'm seen. I may be seen a certain way in this video. Did I serve? I served. You know what I mean? I served. So that is the fourth, okay, element, is we are shifting into this way of how can I serve the other just as I've been served. In this beautiful reciprocal mutual dance, it's not I serve you, you serve me. It's I've been served. If you really reflect on every novel you've ever read, every book that's changed you, every podcast episode that's changed you, there's a whole team of people who have given of themselves in order for that podcast to exist in the way that it does, in order for that book to have been edited and then, packaged and whatever it is, in order for that essay to exist, in order for that poem to exist. That person had to live a whole life and then have that wisdom to share it with you. And how generous of them. So we're going to mirror that generosity back. Okay. The fifth thing that I will encourage you to do, which we alluded to earlier on in the conversation, is this really important skill, art, practice of zooming out. When you are in this cringe and embarrassed and mindset, you're focusing on the one video, the one essay, the one step you need to take today, right? You are not zooming out and saying, as I said earlier, where do I want this to go in like 10 years? Okay. How do I want to express myself in 10 years? Because this is not always, I am obviously coming from a place where I share my work. And so I have that hurdle of like the struggle to share it. But I know many of us, we're just creating for ourselves. And I do that as well. I love journaling. I love dancing. I love singing. That's all for me. It's not for the public. Okay. But if we really understand, if I think to myself, in 10 years from now, it'd be really cool if I felt so free while I drew. Like there was not even a thought in my mind about, then if I am so focused on this drawing, how I feel now, how embarrassing it is, how it isn't good enough, how will I ever become the kind of artist who I want to be? And so, for those of us who are seeking to share ourselves and to experience some of the ripple effects of that sharing, drawing in community, peers, mentors, drawing in opportunities, yes, that is part of it, right? Living our purpose so that others can as well. If we really want to do that, if we believe in our message, then we also believe in the message's ability to scale. What we need to do is not be so bogged down again on December 21st, but have that capacity to zoom out. Okay, zoom out and say, let me see this from a higher perspective. Let me see this in terms of the what I could hope to happen in the next 20 years, not in the next 3 months, not in 2 business days, not this viral video. But really, if I just offer myself in this way and I continue to do that, how generous of me, first of all. If I zoom out, what am I seeing? What is the picture I'm seeing? Where is this going? And does that cohere with the desire I have? Because all of this starts with desire. That was the sixth element that I wanted to add, is stay connected to your desire. What do you deeply desire? Because creativity, it often pierces through desire. So we need to zoom out from the single work to a more holistic body of work view. You know, when you go on someone's YouTube, for example, and it's so satisfying because they have all these playlists of all these ideas and you get to basically binge their content. Or on Substack, you love an essay. What do? They hyperlink to the other essays they've already written on that topic. You go to a podcast episode, you're like, whoa, this is incredible. What do? You start to think, oh, let me go back. Let me actually rank this from oldest to most recent and actually go to like their first episode. I can learn so much from this person. So that's this binge worthy archive system. And what we don't realize is that as artists, we get to create a body of work over many years. And there's a way that even if we return to our own work later, we will even experience something through that work that maybe we were too close to it to experience it in the moment, because other people don't relate to us as we do. So when we zoom out and we think, what is the body of work? Like, that's sexy. What is the body of work I'm trying to create? Then suddenly it doesn't matter that, oh, I never finished drawings. What if they're already finished? What if the only like thing next to do is to say they're finished, and accept that? Give yourself the permission to say what's done is done. Because when people look at 50 drawings that to you are unfinished altogether, what do they see? Oh, they see a body of work. They see a style. They see themes. They see things that surprise them and things that draw them in, because they are seeing it from a more holistic perspective. And the people we are really calling in, that's how we want them to relate to us. Not, oh, she failed on Sunday, the 29th of November, so I'm never listening to her again. It's, wow, I loved this episode. It was one of my favorites. And I will keep listening and I will keep being a part of this space because it's nurturing to me. But I'm not holding every single episode to this impossible standard, because I want this to be sustainable for you. When they look at all the messages you've shared across all your videos, that's really what is resonant in their minds after some time, right? Is this idea that you created, you constructed for them a world in which they got to live. So we can't, if we define ourselves by one single work, similar to the neutrality point, we'll never create a body of work. And it's such a gift to ourselves. I think it's such a sexy feeling when I get to refer to my own ideas and say to myself, oh, I spoke about this on episode 26. Let it become, right? It feels good. It feels rewarding to me. It feels nourishing. It's like, whoa, I'm taking my consciousness so seriously that even as I share it, it's occurring to me the way that I documented it to share it again. I like that. It's satisfying to me. We all need to understand what is rewarding to us. But zooming out and say, do I have the mindset of someone who wants to do this for 20 years, or the mindset of someone who wants this to go really fast and happen very quickly? Because for me, this is a craft. And so it's very important to me to say, okay, you can create a milestone for your podcast. You can say, I can't wait till this happens or that happens. Even if that happens, you're still going to be, your weekly work will still be producing an episode. So if that end result is not attractive to you, if that process actually is not attractive to you, why are you in this line of work? If you are just working to get some sort of outcome, deal, sponsorship, then what's going to happen after that? You plateau. You like, okay, well then now what? Especially with followers. If you're like, oh, I can't wait to get to this number of followers. Okay, so what happens if you do? If you're not connected, tapped in to something deeper, to something that says, actually, every morning I want to wake up and write. Not literally every morning, but more every morning-ish. I want to create. I want to speak. I want to do this thing that I'm doing. I want to do this. I want to keep doing it. So what matters is I unblock myself like a hose pipe. I block myself and say, let it flow, babe. Whatever happened on December 21st, let it flow, because there's going to be December 28th. There's going to be January 4th. There's going to be 2025. There's going to be 2027. And everything is unfolding. But for us to really unfold what we are calling in, we need to allow it ourselves to see that it is acceptable to be seen as we are. We think, oh, I need to become like this or that. No. As you are right now, you have ideas in your head that would change people, that would heal people, that would speak to people, that would resonate with people. As you are right now, you've created work that deeply has import in this universe and just deserves to exist, like the soil and the sand and the trees. So we are not blocking ourselves in 2024. Let other people do that to us, but that's not what we're going to be doing, okay? And if we feel this energy of I'm so embarrassing, I'm so cringe, we are going to allow ourselves. We are going to allow ourselves to speak, okay? Because something I always tell myself is, listen, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. So while I'm on the earth, I might as well speak. The sixth element, I promise you, which I said that came to me but isn't in this model, is stay connected to your desire. Understand what you are desiring. If you're connected to your desire, then being cringe makes total sense in service of that desire. If you really want to get to a certain state of being or place, sometimes it does help to visualize and say, okay, if that's what I'm desiring, this is what that version of me who gets to that desire, this is what they're doing. They're creating the content and hitting send even when they think it could be better. They're doing the thing. They're in the process of sharing themselves because that is how I want to manifest in this world. So it's this balance, because I do think it's important to stay grounded in the process. But I also think our human brains or our human minds and hearts, we are very attracted to the idea of where this could get us. Right. So I think I always do this dance. Like I'm very process driven, but I also do have specific like things that I'm like, whoa, that's an experience I want to have. That's a feeling I want to have. That's a room I want to be in. And for me, connecting to that desire, it makes so much sense why I then need to be doing what I'm already doing, which is just being willing to share myself. And I block myself all the time. I have so many things I just save to drafts. I'm like, oh, this is too embarrassing. Save to drafts. I'll come back to it. Does she come back to it? No, never, not once. Okay. Or very rarely, like literally maybe 3 times in a year. So what we need to understand is if we zoom out, we tap into that desire, we say, yo, wouldn't it be so nice if, are you going to honor yourself and do the things that that person who's in that state of being needs to do in order to receive, let's not even say achieve, receive that state of being, which will be the natural conclusion of the way that you are allowing yourself to be shared and to be seen. So today we took a little bit of a journey, babes. We went into the 5 elements of how we can alchemize the fear of being cringe. Now I want to invite us to understand that with these 5 elements, validate, neutralize, connect, serve, and zoom out. Where have we moved from into? What is the transformation? We move from invalidating our feelings, like, oh no, I shouldn't be embarrassed. The people I admire probably don't feel this way. Why can't I just get over it? Why can't I ever stick to a plan? We move from invalidating energy to validating. This makes so much sense in the context of the culture that I grew up in and the history that I've lived and the childhood that I have and the identity that I hold. Number 2, we move from repelling ourselves. This is so embarrassing. This is so cringe. I could never, I'm unacceptable, to saying, okay, let's neutralize. This just is. Just like the trees, just like the petals, just like the waves of the ocean, this just is. So, what is the mindset that someone who needs to get this work to be finished or to exist in the world as I'm manifesting? What is the mindset they would need to have? Just neutral. It just is. Let's detach selectively to attach through the work itself. Because I always want to attach through the episode, but I don't want to be so attached to the version of the episode in my head, the perfect version that's always a fantasy, that I never let it be and never let it become what it can be, what I have to give on December 21st. The third thing we move from is feeling isolated to connecting, feeling like I'm the only one who feels this way. I'm carrying this on my own. And I know this is not on you. You can't just imagine your way out of feeling isolated completely. But what you can do is imagine a state of affairs where there are other beings who feel exactly as you do. And you can feel that sense of unity with them. You can say, whoa, isn't it so sad that our culture has done this to all of us? Even as you don't actually have any of those actual people in mind, there's 8 billion of us, so that's so much space to play with the imagination and use it, not to imagine the worst, but to imagine connection, imagine resonance, imagine empathy. Okay. And another way you could connect is connect to other people's stories who've shared their experiences feeling like they're too embarrassing to be shared. The fourth thing that we spoke about was from protecting our ego. How will I be seen? How will I come across? What if I look like this? What if I'm this person? What if people hate me? What if people cancel me too? How can this serve? How could this be of service? Could this help one person? Who has served me? And in turn, who can I serve? Okay. This really other and collective based mindset of what if another world is trying to speak through you. And all we need to do is get you into that service mindset so that you can actually offer your gifts to the collective, because we are seeking you. Just as you were seeking this podcast episode, I had to believe that was possible. So similarly, we need to understand people are seeking our voices, but we need to detach from this protected ego state to actually appreciate that we are healers. We are people who can offer this service to others. And it's a divine practice, a sacred practice, and it's in our DNA. It's our birthright. It's in our beings as nature to give and also to receive. And the fifth and final way we are going to alchemize our fear of being cringe and being embarrassing and being too much or too whatever is moving from zooming in, fixating. This one project is my life and it defines me, and I'm going to work on it for 6 months and then I'll release it. And then I'll be like, whoa, what will happen when I launch? To being like, zoom out. This is one episode on one day of 1 year in what I hope to be a decades long career of speaking and of using my voice. We don't know the technology. We don't know if podcasting will be a thing, but I know that I can't really know anything in terms of the future. But what I feel to be true is that speaking is a medium that is deeply resonant and important for me and for my unfolding. So if I'm speaking, well, I'm zooming out. I'm being and embodying what I hope to become. I'm zooming out and saying, okay, this may not be the episode of my dreams. Okay, I actually really like this episode, but this may not be. But if I keep doing this, I will keep being more and more able to create the episodes of my dreams. And maybe I'll even come to a deeper awareness that there is no actual episode of my dreams. It was all an illusion of perfection. Perfection is not actually achievable. Okay, so we're going from fixated, zoomed in, myopic view. Look at this one episode to like, oh, what if my only goal is to get to 100 episodes? Then it's just like hitting send is the bar. So like lower the bar so you can achieve it so that it's sustainable. And the book Atomic Habits speaks about this as well. And then the sixth one you get for free, a bonus, was connecting to your desire. So we're shifting from feeling very disconnected from what we actually want and that deep state of desire. Like, wouldn't that be so juicy? To being like, no, 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 no. When I feel the envy, I'm going to ask me, what is desire trying to say to me? When I'm comparing myself to someone's work, I'm going to say, what is desire trying to speak through me? Where is the desire in this? Because if you connect to your desire and then you also connect to the aligned action that will fortify and bring that desire into being, that is the alignment that you are seeking. That is the coherence you are seeking. So I hope that you've enjoyed this transformation we've taken together, where we've alchemized and learned how to alchemize our fear into flow, our fear being cringe into accepting, validating, connecting, zooming out, really appreciating the generosity within us and our capacity to serve. And we've said, okay, like this is how we change the world, is through changing consciousness, is through sharing our consciousness, which clearly in some ways at odds with the consciousness we see represented, or we wouldn't feel so fearful in sharing it, or the consciousness we were told to have by our families or by our friends or by our communities. All I want to say is don't let the limited people you now know, who now know you, stop you from the infinite people who may find your message so resonant with them if you only allow yourself to share it, right? It's not even about the size. It's more that we think of these 29 people who knew us from high school and from these specific people maybe within that, even thinking of who do you fear most. But then what about like hundreds of people, tens of people who could deeply resonate with what you have to say? And like, would we rather serve the people who are trying to keep us silent and small, or actually speak into the largeness, the void of like, we don't even know the uncertainty of who may come our way if we allow ourselves, if we dare ourselves, if we risk ourselves, and understand that when we share ourselves authentically, one thing I can guarantee is we magnetize like-hearted people towards us. And there's something so precious and divine about that, okay? Like I am feeling so supported right now in this project, in my podcast, and just like on my channels, that even though I know there's the fear of being canceled or hated on, I also know there's so much love. And the opposite of fear includes love, loving ourselves and loving the collective so much that we are willing to create through the fear. The opposite of fear is also trust, trusting that there are voices who want to hear ours, trusting that the universe is not always terrible and shocking and suffering inducing. Sometimes there is love, sometimes there is connection, sometimes there is resonance. And if there's been love for others, why not for you? Why not for me? Why not for us? So I'm sending you all the love today. I hope that you enjoyed this masterclass. Please note that my masterclass on creative fear is coming out in mid-February. It's going to be wonderful, 4 weeks, and I'm so excited to have that experience. So this is just a taste, and I can't wait to see more of you there. information will be coming through on my channels. So don't you worry, you will know. And I can't wait for this to be in the world and to manifest through me. And I'm just so excited to continue to support all of you on your journeys in whatever way, shape, or form. I mean, there's different layers of my work. And if you want to go to the deepest layer, you can work with me one-on-one. And the information for how to set up a discovery or consultation call is on my website. I am sending all the love. I'm feeling energized. I'm feeling like, wow, I'm stepping into a new being. And what a magical feeling that is. And to feel like I have sat with the fear of judgment and the fear of failure and the fear of all the fear, and I understand it, and it's still there. It doesn't really all go dissolve completely, but it does dissolve. It does become less potent, especially if you say, okay, what if they do judge me? What if they do reject me? What if they do find me cringe? What then? And can I find a space of love and safety within myself that I will still love myself even if that happens? I will still love myself if I'm canceled. I will still love myself if that happens, right? And that's where I am now, where I am loved. I am love. I am manifesting as love. And if I'm doing that, I'm in alignment with my intention. I'm in alignment with the universe, in my opinion, in this way. Okay, we're not perfect beings. I just mean in this offering, I feel deeply aligned and I feel deeply grateful to have people who are willing to listen to me and support me and radiate love into my soul so that I can feel energized and I can feel full and juicy and able to then share the fruits of that juiciness with you. Okay, I love you so much. I will see you on the next episode. You'll hear from me soon. Love you. Bye. I hope some paradigms have been shifted for you in today's conversation. As always, if you can, please leave a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify. Like, comment, subscribe. I love you so, so much. Okay? I love you. Join me on my Substack. Links in the comment section. Go there. Okay? Love you so much. Love you. Bye.